have one of these. What's an ideal size for a system? Would it be this size? Would it be a little bit bigger? Or
So how many people would you want to feed? That's really the question.
Okay.
So let's talk about leafy lettuce. So that's Simpson and Landis lettuce. It's a very leafy lettuce.
Okay.
When it harvests, it will probably yield maybe 6 ounces. What's the average size of a salad? 4 to 6 ounces serving size, right? So that might yield enough for 2 salads, 2 people, right? Romaine, when this is fully grown, these will be a heavy, hearty, dense head of lettuce. This can grow up to a pound. Well, that'll feed 4 to 6 people, right? So the question is how many people do you want to feed?
Okay.
Right. So, but if you can imagine this size system, 400 square feet, producing 160 heads of lettuce. If you can imagine 30 by 100, 1,100, 1,200 heads of lettuce or plants a week. And if it's romaine, you're talking 3 or 4 people off of each head of lettuce. That's a lot of food. So it's how many people are you trying to feed?
So you could be really strategic in your selections in terms of what you're growing, because in the same amount of space with the same amount of resources and the same amount of fish, you could grow really kind of light plants, or you could grow really heavy.
So I could grow the leafy lettuces twice as fast as I can romaine.
Oh, okay.
3 to 4 weeks.
Then it's
I can get
kinda-
2 turns. Romaines are 50 to 60 days. So twice as fast on the leafies.
Comparable output then, because
Well, I just get twice as much on the leafies than I do the heads. And the bibs. Butter crunch is a bib. It's a very hardy thing. So those take longer, but they're more dense. By the time I harvest those will be also 10, 12, 14 ounces. But yeah, I can continue harvesting twice as many here of these leafy lettuces than I can the romaines. So I like them. Yeah.
If I had any partners, or if I was an organization, how much money would I be looking to spend to start and operate a facility?
So good question, but we would need to go back to how many people would you like to serve. A standard, a common size greenhouse is the 30 by 100 footprint. 30 by 20, but typically 30 by 100s. I don't know. It just seems to be the industry standard. But then we buckle them together at the gutter. So that's a gutter connected to 30 by 100s. And so I could continue connecting them at the gutter. The reason for that is it's the same environment inside. You just take out the sidewall, and it's the same open air, right? Same ventilation, same piping. You run your piping, you just keep adding piping, right? And so long as you eventually, when you get to some point, you'll meet the growing space relative to the fish that you have, and you'll have to add more fish systems. But you can just keep buckling them.
So one thing, I definitely don't want us to leave without talking about how we can all work together. So one thing with that, maybe this is kind of where you're going. Yeah. Is if there's a partner agency that's interested in starting up one of these, and there's grant funding available, the partner agency's probably been around for a long time. Right. Could partner with BPF and starting their own. Right. Setup? Is that kind of...
So talk to me about the demand for fresh produce. As I'm understanding, there was a new refrigerator freezer system that was just opened up, I guess. Was it in Plano?
Yes, so our new distribution center is in Plano. And so we have about 260,000 square feet of just I want to say that's the total facility. I don't remember how much the actual floor is.
Off the top of my head.
So where are you getting the produce from?
Some of it's USDA, so it's a mix of purchased, donated, and USDA produce. So I think it's our produce. I want to say. So yeah, I mean that's it is. It's donated, purchased, and USDA. And it's some of it's the donated stuff I think is coming from retailers like Kroger, Walmart, things like that. And so there's definitely a huge need for produce, and the food bank is that's one of our main goals is to distribute healthy meals. So produce is a big interest for us.
So if you had a 40 by 100 plot of land available, would a 30 by 100 greenhouse produce enough to offset the need that you guys have in the food bank? Would that even make a dent in that?
So
Okay, I don't know how many meals you guys serve and how much of that is produce based.
Last fiscal year, we did 77 million meals.
77?
77 million, yeah. And this year we're tracking to 82 million.
A lot of food.
It's a lot, and I don't know what percent of that is produce. Do you know the breakdown?
I do for like my specific agencies.
For your agencies, what percent is dry versus what percent produce?
Give me 1 second.
Okay. So it's millions of pounds, certainly millions of pounds of produce.
But if you just use loose numbers, let's say a 4-course meal, one course of that, 1/4 is your salad, right? Mm-hmm. So salad, tomatoes, onions, the rest are your proteins and whatever else, right? So maybe is it fair to think 1/4?
I would say, my guess is like 40% produce.
Really? That's significant.
I think, where did I see this recently? Feeding America encourages 50%, I think.
Well, if you want to go back, the USDA or the FDA, who maintains the food pyramid? That's
USDA,
USDA,
My
right?
Plate, yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's like 60 or 70% more produce based and then like 20% protein or something. I don't know. It's crazy.
North Texas Food Bank is part of a national coalition of food banks under Feeding America. Okay. So Feeding America, they monitor like our compliance as a food bank. They're like what we report up to.
Okay.
So Feeding America, I think I saw this very recently. I think recommends that 50% of our distribution is produce.
Really? That's a significant amount.
Yeah, and I think the idea too is that our clients aren't necessarily getting 100% of their food from us. Sure. So you can assume if a client is getting 50% of their food, they're probably, what the client can afford is probably all the dry food, the boxed food, the pasta, the rice, I'm sure a lot. So if we can kind of fill in with produce, now obviously we have a lot of dry food as well, but it's those dry items and boxed items that are typically cheaper and typically what the client is already purchasing. So if they can go to their pantry and get a significant amount of produce from us, then that is certainly beneficial.
And I think that speaks to a need. A lot of our agencies are looking to get their hands on fresher produce. Produce that's going to last longer. And so because by the time something lands to one of our partner agencies, the shelf life available to the client may not be very long.
So let me talk about that for a second. Did you know that when we harvest the lettuce, the roots go with it? That plant is still alive, but that plant will last weeks, not days. So when we harvest this, we actually take the roots and wrap it around the cup, and that goes with the plant. It goes in a clamshell or a box, and the plant actually stays alive up to weeks, days and days for sure, but weeks. Unlike when you cut it out of the field, it's dead. But these are live plants. In fact, if you look at any hydroponic packaging, it'll say live plants. It technically is still live because the nutrients are still there in the roots. So that's how when we harvest these, the roots go with plants.
I just looked at one of the numbers. I don't track specifically by county, but we track by agency. In Lewisville, one of our largest partners did about 275,000 pounds of produce for our second quarter, which was October, November, and December. And so now that's a very large agency. And so
So the food bank itself, the food bank itself wouldn't necessarily, unless it was incorporated into our garden. The food bank, we're a food distribution center. So 80% of our food goes out through the partner agencies, not actually from the food bank. So it's not people coming to the food bank and getting food. It's the food bank sending food out to pantries, homeless shelters, soup kitchens, and that's where the client is getting the food.
Sure.
So, but yeah, I think, you know, if we have, I wonder if there are agencies that have gardens, right?
And I think that there are, and I think like why I was asking, I guess, like specifics about like there's going to be an ideal size, and I know it depends on the number of people that are looking to be fed,
but the common model is 30 by 100.
Right.
3,000 square feet.
And so having specific numbers to be able to share with partners to incorporate that, potentially integrate funding, I think the more numbers that they can conceptualize, this is a great idea, and I think that there are partners who are definitely interested in learning more, which is why I wanted to share with them.
Send them our way.
And so I think just having palatable information of how much money would this cost, and the different phases, different goals, and then how much is available to be produced, I think would be a great resource in getting you potentially connected with partners in the area.
So Chief, I think the question is, how much food can a 30 by 100 produce in a year, and how much does the typical one of those cost to get started?
So, let's see if I can remember my math. So an 80-foot raceway, divided by 2 is 40 times 32. So
We won't judge you if you use a calculator.
Not at all. Not at all.
I can't do anything with that one.
So a typical 30 by 100 will produce 1,024 plants a week.
Are you getting this down, Emily? Because my pen ran out.
And I'll give you guys these
1,004.
videos if you want to.
That would be
And I can send you these, but off the top of my head. So that's roughly around a $50,000 investment, not including OpEx.
But that's like a capital investment up front. You got operating costs, which, you know,
Right.
they are whatever they
Right.
are. We can
Seeds,
get that.
It's
But
media, it's fish food, it's
And
nutrients.
it's probably a fraction of the, I mean,
Well, once it's, yes.
it's probably
It is.
fairly inexpensive to keep
a lot
it
of
going.
different-
Yes.
Right.
So, fortunately for us, we use a lot of volunteer help, so our labor
Right.
costs are nil. So if I had to pay for labor to build it, then of course there's more cost there. So.
but once that 30 by 100 is built, that, what do you say, 1,000 plants a week, roughly?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's 52 weeks a year, and that can be all kinds of different varieties. But that's year over year. There's no more capital investment. We figured in some of the operating
Right.
costs is about every 4 years you have to replace the consumables
The
here.
poly is ideally it lasts for 6 years. It usually doesn't. But this is what we typically use is a double layer plastic. We put a baffle blow air in between them. It creates an air barrier, helps keep the temperatures down. And in Texas, the wind can be pretty ferocious, so it'll last maybe 4 or 5 years.